Try to get the show over in under 2 hours. What's the quickest you've ever gone?
An hour and 20. The longest, Neil Kinnock, 3 days.
Well, I have to argue with Neil. It was 3 days, yes. 3 days, but the hours were not consecutive. Oh, no, not consecutive.
So how long do you want, Paul, Ian?
2 hours.
An hour 35 is good.
Hour 35.
1 hour, 35 minutes, starting now. Good evening and welcome to Have I Got News For You? I'm Jeremy Clarkson. In the news this week, at an EU conference in Brussels, eager delegates clamour for a copy of the latest health and safety report. With the marriage of Wayne Rooney and Colleen McLaughlin just weeks away, caterers say they're confident the wedding breakfast will be ready on time. And at a leisure centre in Hull, John Prescott somehow manages to sneak his way into a women-only buffet. On Ian Hislop's team tonight is a presenter who recently launched the BBC's new 90-second news bulletin in an attempt to attract younger viewers with shorter programmes. Good idea. Good night. Please welcome Kate Silverton. And with Paul Merton tonight is a poet and broadcaster who stood for election to the post of Professor of Poetry at Oxford University, submitting the following poem. My nomination's not a joke. My intention is to truly soak Oxford with poetry fizzing like Coke. Inexplicably, he lost. Please welcome Ian McMillian.
I don't think that was a good thing. The embarrassing thing about that was that I came last after a student who put up for a joke. In fact, I have got 3 honorary degrees. So I'm Dr. Ian McMillian.
Yeah, the
3 honorary degrees, isn't that a tribute band?
Yes, it is. OK, in round 1, we cover the bigger stories of the week. Ian and Kate, take a look at this.
This is, of course, Barack Obama then becoming the first black presidential nominee, getting an affectionate punch from his wife, Michelle.
He's delighted that the black guy's won. He's got a chance now.
Hillary's campaigners are being told the party's over, but someone forgot to tell her.
No, she thinks she's won. This is a victory parade.
She's still hanging in there, isn't she? She's determined to get the vice presidential
Yes.
circuit.
She's been sort of spending her entire time saying, you know, Barack Obama's untrustworthy idiot, and now she says, well, I think I should be your running mate. Doesn't really work, does it?
No.
I can't imagine why he'd want her. The theory is that she'd sit there for 4 years plotting to become president in 2012.
Do you know how many vice presidents have subsequently made it to president?
2, 3.
No.
85.
We're going to be here a long time if we do.
If you know the answer, then we won't be.
No, I do know the answer.
Well, it's up to you how long we spend here, then.
Well, no, because if you're going to go 2, 3, 4, we have to wait till you get to 14, then I go, well done, Paul.
14.
14.
Yeah. Really?
Al Gore was vice president, and then, of course, he went on to be a twat, but that's not...
Is that largely on his views on the environment, Jeremy?
I'm not entirely certain everyone here in this part of London's with me on that one, so we'll brush it off.
What are your views on the environment, Jeremy?
Not the same as everybody's here. Well, I mean, if he's right, I'm out of a job.
We're out of a planet.
Well, yes, but I might have a job. So, what is so special about the number 2,156 and a half?
It's an indivisible prime.
It is.
No, it isn't. It's got a half in it.
Is it a number of delegates?
Indivisible by...
It's the number of super delegates. They're not like ordinary delegates. They're much fatter.
Anyway, you needed 2,118 to get in, and he's done it, so
He's
hurrah
done it.
for him. Here he is pictured this week.
He looks like a bloke wearing a Rio Ferdinand death mask, doesn't he?
It's conjunctivitis. Here are some extracts that I've got from a speech he made in Minnesota. I face this challenge with profound humility. Let us begin the work together. This is our moment. This is our time. Our time to turn the page. Our time to offer a new direction. The journey will be difficult. The road will be long. He's my brother. He ain't heavy. Yes, he is. Did anyone see the high-tech way that ITN covered this momentous election?
To try to explain how last night's committee meeting result affects the Democrats' race for the White House, I've come down here with a whiteboard. Now, as they say in America, let's try and do the math. First of all, here is a magic number, 2,118. That effectively is the finish line for Obama and Clinton.
You're boring me now. So if you were Barack, who would you have as a vice president?
Well, he's got to choose a white guy, and he's got to choose someone a bit older, someone with foreign affairs experience. I think Bush would be good.
You can't fancy Martha Reeves. I like the idea of Martha
She
Reeves.
fancies you, Jeremy. She told me last week in Barnsley, yes.
She wasn't in Barnsley.
That's where she
last
lives.
week. She doesn't.
She does?
She doesn't.
She does.
She really doesn't. Martha Reeves lives in Detroit.
Well, who was it I saw then?
Tell you what.
Vic Reeves?
Vic Reeves! Vic Reeves! That's who it was. He lives in Barnsley. Yeah.
Can you just see if that ITM vote's finished yet? Well, let's have a look.
And 50 delegates. Clinton has 1,877 total number of delegates, so she is 173 behind, roughly. Now, there are still...
In other foreign news,
Yeah.
okay, who's to blame, we've been told, for the food shortages in Zimbabwe?
The UK and our European allies and everybody else apart from Mr Mugabe himself.
No, this food conference was full of lunatics. Mugabe was allowed to turn up, and then the man from Iran, Ahmadinejad, he said that the reason there are food shortages is because the Zionists have got it all. The Jews, they've eaten it. I mean, these are world statesmen. They're allowed in the building rather than hustled out, saying, no, not today, thank you.
Then it had to be Rome, didn't it?
It did have to be, yeah, because that's where they were having a meeting.
And inflation, of course, still rampant in Zimbabwe?
Yeah.
What do you think you could buy there for 100 million Zimbabwe dollars?
A government minister?
No, much smaller and
A
yellower.
loaf or something.
Yellower and
Custard,
bent.
custard.
A small jar of mustard.
Bent custard. Think of if you
A
bent...
banana?
Yes!
Hey!
Banana.
That's why I
100
said that so
million.
loudly.
Is bent custard meant to be a clue for banana?
I'm
custard.
trying to move you. I'm trying to help you out there.
Yeah, but bent custard isn't going to get me to banana, is it?
At least we're at the end of 3 months of tedious campaigning, leaving us free to look forward to 6 months of tedious campaigning before Obama becomes the first black man to lose an American election. Hillary Clinton still hasn't conceded defeat, unless you're watching the Saturday repeat, in which case she still hasn't conceded defeat. Unless you're watching the Monday repeat, in which case she still hasn't conceded defeat. Unless you're watching this on UK Gold, in which case... Was she good as a president? Meanwhile, Robert Mugabe is taking time off his busy election rigging schedule to be in Rome. He's attending a UN summit on food shortages. One article in the Daily Mail by Norman Tebbit was headlined, "We need no lectures from this mad dog on 2 legs." So I didn't read it. Under Mugabe, inflation is spiralling out of control. A loaf of bread currently costs $200 million. A banana currently costs $100 million. And Zimbabwe TV's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire isn't quite the hit it once was. Paul and Ian, take a look at this.
42. 42. OK, and this is...
A very tall policeman.
Yeah, it's a tall policeman. This is about how many days you can hold people in detention. That's the Home Secretary there. That's
a Peter, Paul and Mary tribute act.
Indeed. And this is the Samaritans.
Well, there's the...
Yeah, there we are.
That's the Gordon Brown sex line.
He's been phoning people up. He's been phoning various members of the population up. Cold calls, I think it's called. They phone him up and they've written a letter to number 10 Downing Street and he phones them up at 4:30 in the morning saying, "You bastard!" and puts the phone down. That's it.
Yeah, there.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, there. You've covered all that beautifully.
That's more or less it, isn't it? That is more or less it.
You're right.
Yeah.
Well done. So who's in favour of this? Who's in favour of this 42-day detention period?
Jackie Smith, she had a private meeting, didn't she?
Yeah, she said, trust me. The police said we didn't.
Yeah. The Sun said she was barnstorming in Parliament. The Daily Mail, though, Quentin Letts, didn't comment. Because
that's
normally
news, then.
he's very interested in Jackie Smith. She's perfect, this one. Straight off an episode of The Bill. All you'd have to do is kit her out in the WPC's uniform, give her a ballpoint pen, she'd make an excellent desk sergeant. If she wasn't wearing a wonder bra, there must have been something wrong with Earth's gravity that day. Meanwhile, as terrorists sweated it out, he was still going on. From the vantage point of the press gallery, which is just above the Commons benches, believe me, it was impossible not to notice Jackie's penny in the slot frontage. She looked terrific. Mid-40s, eh, Quentin? I know it's a bugger. And also the ex-head of MI6.
Yeah, but they're all split, the experts, and most of them say you don't need 42 days. They should be able to sort it out quicker, and there are powers already to extend it. So Gordon Brown has chosen to fight to the last ditch on an issue in which he's totally wrong. And 42 days is important, because that's how long he's going to last.
The ex-head of MI6, Sir Richard Dearlove, said, if 42 days is not adopted, regret it, we will.
Is he a time traveller? From the 17th century?
Of course, in Zimbabwe, because of inflation, it's 85 million days, isn't it?
Now, staying with the war on terror, what was the gold standard cock-up which came to light recently?
Chinooks that were meant for special forces, and then due to a clause in the contract when they were bought, the clause said there wasn't a clause put in that said give us the code so that we can work the software. So because of that, you've got these Chinooks that sit there, and that's it, they're grounded. All because of a slight clause. Does that make sense? I'm sorry.
No, it's bang on.
Is that how you end the news?
Can I do that one again?
They bought these Chinooks for use in the Middle East, and they only fly in Hertfordshire.
Why can't they get out of Hertfordshire?
I think conditions have to be absolutely perfect. So it's got to be sunny, no cloud level, no enemy.
Very Hertfordshire-ish.
Very Hertfordshire. And they only really work if Prince William is flying them to a stag night.
Why don't the Americans just give us the password?
Over the course of 13 years, you could have tried quite a few words, couldn't you? It's worth paying a bloke 80 quid a week just to be sitting there going, bum. Bottom.
It's normally password, I find. It's right. More government wastage. Did you hear what the House of Lords is planning to spend 100 million quid on?
Bananas from Zimbabwe.
It's new offices, which they say they want to do work in. The cost includes a wine cellar, a tunnel to the upper chamber, and an e-library, which isn't what you think. It's sort of
E-bygone.
No, it's not one of those.
The Yorkshireman's wife died, and he wanted the word "she was thine"
she
on
was
the
thine.
gravestone, and the stonemason got it wrong and put "she was thin." And he went back and he says, "You've missed off the E." And he went back a week after that and he put "E, she was thin."
Have I got jokes for you? Do you know of any attempts to boost Brown's PR this week?
Is this the comic strip?
Yes.
Captain Britain.
Captain Britain.
Captain Britain.
Captain Britain, that's him.
Exactly right.
A dour version of Captain America.
That's right, we've got it here. It's a Marvel comic and it's been published and it's called Captain Britain. I think he's a Millwall supporter, this chap here. Gordon Brown is seen as this all-action leader. And here he is, look, briefing Captain Britain. There he is.
And I think that a number of aliens have got into the cabinet.
That's right.
Well, that's not fiction, is it?
The Daily Mail tried to show what the cabinet would look like as comic book or cartoon characters. They'd got Yvette Cooper there as Tinkerbell. And Tessa Jowl here is... zippy.
That's only because we all want to zip it up.
I think the best one, the most accurate one, was Alistair Darling here.
Nick from Private Eye.
Was it really?
Yeah, we did that one.
Are you suggesting that the Daily Mail has taken an idea from Private Eye?
Yes. No, we did that lookalike. Are you saying we did one of you?
You did one of me.
And that bloke who
Got
does...
one. Yeah.
It's quite good, wasn't it?
I took it as a great compliment.
This could get ugly.
They did me and Johnny Depp.
You are Johnny Depp, aren't you?
It says here, don't we all miss John Prescott? No, but... did you see the latest revelation from his memoirs? Or as he calls it, me bookie wookie?
No, I didn't.
No.
Really? No?
What do you say?
No, well, apparently, and you're not going to like the image that this is going to put into your head, really, Thatcher used to flirt with him.
Says Prescott.
He said she would half smile at me when I was speaking from the front bench. Even a wink on one occasion.
That's just libellous. Whereas Prescott's like one of those 14-year-old boys. She fancies me. Definitely does.
Do 14-year-old boys fantasise about Margaret Thatcher?
William Hague did. Right, well, there we are. So, yes, this is the news of a really good week for Gordon Brown. Somehow he's got to the end of it and he's still Prime Minister. The Mirror reported that the PM has come under pressure to impose a windfall tax on greedy oil companies, or as they're also known, oil companies. Gordon Brown has got so desperate he's even started making phone calls to random members of the public, asking for suggestions. Of course, the first indication that Gordon Brown is calling you is when the operator says, "Will you accept a reverse charge call?" Time now for the steering wheel of news.
Oh.
So we're ready?
Yeah.
So, what's this and why is this in the news?
This is an orange.
Yeah.
There's a new form of orange that's been grown. It's a super orange. It's full of... It's 10 times the amount of vitamin C of other oranges. No.
This is actually the news that the sales of oranges are falling because people are too busy to peel them.
You're confusing the words busy and lazy.
Busy?
They can't be bothered. They're too fat.
No, what's it?
Their arms don't reach round the orange.
What have easy peelers got to do with this? No,
There's
they're
a new type of orange called the Easy Peeler,
Well, sort of.
named after the head of the Metropolitan Police Force. No, it isn't.
Hey. Thank you. Is that a joke from 1878, I hear? Oh, corn laws.
Peel gag.
Yes.
Very topical in its day. I used it on the first series of this.
Easy peelers are like tangerines and satsumas, and the Times helpfully printed a guide on how to eat an orange. Think of your thumb as a crank-operated potato peeler. Do you know, I do that all the time, because I've got really weird thumbs. So
Oh, look at him. Oh, my God.
that's what peeling oranges does to you. You can't see this.
You'll be able to watch it on the telly
Vomiting if
tomorrow.
you could.
They can't see us over there.
Yes, I can, madam.
Oh, dear.
OK, why has the West African red berry got the tongues wagging this week?
Oh, OK. Oh, thank you, Ian.
You didn't need
Hello
that.
again. Yeah. No, because it's the berry that temporarily changes your taste buds so that when you taste something very sour, it tastes very sweet. So you taste a lemon and it tastes actually like sugary lemonade.
That's exactly right. So let's have its Latin name.
Berius Borisus Berius.
No, it's Syncypalum dulcificum or something. Or as the journalists have been calling it, the miracle fruit. Apparently it makes Irish stouts taste like chocolate milkshake. So
Irish stout, is that any relation to Guinness?
Well, I'm just being careful.
The BBC's very against product placement.
So why are those Pringles on there?
Perhaps Jeremy will refer to it as one of Britain's most popular concave crisps.
You say concave.
I say concave.
Later on, we'll be bringing that up again, Merton, and
Good.
who knows what.
It's my specialist subject, things that are concave. I did it
Don't
in school.
say concave in a minute.
That's the first time I've ever been given a warning about saying the word concave. I quite like it as an experience.
Nobody's ever said it before. Anyway, this is the news that we're all now too busy to peel an orange. According to the Times, parents are too busy to pass on the craft of orange peeling. These days, they don't need to, because all the kids have got knives. Are we ready for the next spin?
Is this a story about Britain's favourite concave crisp?
They've been redefined as a Jaffa cake.
No. It's the news that the man who designed the Pringles...
Mr. Pringle?
I've said it. Damn. The Pringles crisp tube is to have his ashes buried in one.
Is this going to be a packet at random that's sold in the shops? The flavour is dead food scientist.
In chives.
Yeah, and chives, yeah.
Yeah, he's called Frederick Bauer. He's died aged 89. He's so proud of his tube.
Yeah.
It was his dying wish to be buried in one, according to his son, after he'd seen the price of coffins. Now, what shape is a Pringle?
Well, my previous utterances on the subject are a matter of public record.
It's a hyperbolic paraboloid. Concave. It's a ridiculous thing to say. And so, what was Frederick Bauer... No, sorry. What was Frederick Bauer famous for?
Making Pringles.
He was a respected food chemist who
Yes.
published several research papers, including the synthesis of single fatty acid 1.3... God, this word goes on forever.
Diglycerides.
How did you know that?
It's just reading.
Yeah. Your eyes still work, then. Speaking of confined spaces, a homeless Japanese woman has been living on the top shelf of a cupboard for
That's
a
right.
unbeknown unbeknown to the owner of a house.
Yeah.
This was in Japan. I know housing's at a premium, but do people just live on shelves?
And eventually he couldn't understand why things were disappearing from his fridge, so he set up a camera and was... Imagine his surprise when a small woman was seen to climb out of the top shelf of a cupboard and help herself. She was described as 58-year-old Tatsuko Horikawa. She was single.
In fact, she was on the shelf, yeah.
The hiding place was discovered in a house in Fukuoka, which is pretty close to what the bloke said when he opened the cupboard door. Next spin. Fingers on your buzzers. Ready? Well, who is he? What's he doing in the news? Do you know who
Is
he
it
is?
Max Mosley?
Yes.
He's something to do with Formula One racing, and I think the News of the World. He got filmed in visiting some prostitute's place, and something to do with an orgy with Nazi overtones was how it was portrayed. And he was saying there's no Nazi overtones; it was just an orgy. And can I have my job? And they said yes, you can have your job still. So he
No.
has. He's still got his job.
As you can see, I'm now fiddling around on the floor.
That's what he said.
Yes.
I think he was just trying to reach some biscuits on the shelf and just kept doing that. Yeah.
So what exactly is the job that old Max gets to keep?
He's the head of the FIA, yeah.
Yeah, it's the sort of governing body of everything to do with motoring and Formula One.
Oh, so of interest to you?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, no, actually, not at all. At the FIA meeting in Paris, 103 motoring groups voted to back him, with 55 going against. He told them in his defence, I was only obeying orders.
His defence was not entirely convincing. He said that he was speaking in German because one of the young ladies was German and he felt it was only courteous to speak to her in her own language while he was spanking her.
I think, actually, apparently, he wasn't talking in German. He was talking in English, but with a German accent. It wasn't really worse, Do you know what they did to his hair? They paid them to do to his hair?
Yes, they checked it for lice.
Yeah.
Is he an ex-public school boy?
What are you trying to suggest?
Right, merely that somebody with those predilections may have picked it up in early age with the establishment where people are known to play spanking headlights games at an early age.
So, anyone else annoyed with him?
Yeah,
His
most
wife.
people.
The sponsors aren't happy.
Yes. Well, he doesn't
Sponsors
have
at the
sponsors.
orgy, they got a lot of publicity.
So, these Pringles as you have here, very nice. Do you want to whip them off my buttocks? I've just remembered where I was last Friday.
Right. Yes.
Did you
this
say
is...
Reich?
No, I said right. This is the news that Max Mosley has survived in his job as head of motor racing's governing body. After being accused of a Nazi romp with prostitutes, he won a crucial vote of confidence. Though as he was driven away, it was perhaps a mistake to stand through the sunroof and wave. Having been caught in a tabloid sting with prostitutes and all his closest associates turning against him, he's now going to be replaced by a different guest chairman every week. What?
It's taken 6 years to get one of those gags in.
Here we go. Who is this?
Yes, it's what's her name?
What about...
It's been ages since I've seen her. She's behind that steering wheel.
Yeah, what have I done?
Well, it's not specifically you.
Oh, OK.
Newsreaders in general.
Oh, of course!
Oh, this is people
Well, it
we know.
wouldn't be me. I'm not the one that's well paid, Jeremy.
Paxman is what you mean. Paxman.
Presenter pay. Whether presenters are value for money.
Oh, this is the special pot and kettle question. But it's a rather odd conclusion, isn't it? It says that newsreaders probably are overpaid, whereas presenters on other shows more or less justify their rate. So, BBC Trust getting it pretty much right. Or not.
Absolutely, yes, it's...
Rather difficult for us to answer this question, given that everybody sitting on this panel is overpaid by the BBC.
Speak for yourself, I work in news.
Yes. This is all rather embarrassing, isn't it? So... Look, does anyone see another card with a green label on it?
Yeah.
Those are green ones. Would you mind? I may have dropped... Oh, no, wait, there's one here.
That's got green there.
Sorry, mate, thanks. It's
you
okay,
found
I
it,
found it. Yeah, sorry.
I just got the answer.
Hey, you got the answer.
Is the answer king, yeah?
I am famously messy. Yes, well done.
Thank you.
Well, I
Right,
get
that's
there.
that round done. Next.
No, we won't. Not when I unplug his buzzer. Right, here it is. Here's the... I've lost it again.
Is technology a strong thing with you?
Yes. There we go.
It's green. You're not interested.
Very good. Bill Oddie, OK? What's he been in trouble for?
I'll put in salacious comments into the mouths of animals.
It was like an X-rated Johnny Morris.
It was. We've actually got some film here, and if you do have children, please cover their eyes now. It's stag beetles.
And finally, he crash lands
That's a funny
straight
stag
on
beetle.
top of a likely-looking lady. Well, there's a bit of luck. One thing's for sure, this boy is horny.
Yes, he then put on a high-pitched voice, pretending to be the female and saying, "Come on, big boy, come and get it. Oh, be gentle with me." Still on the subject of wildlife, why has Dude the heron been in the news?
Dude.
Because he couldn't fly, and so his owner, human owner, ran alongside to encourage him to, and he's managed to do it.
He was orphaned in a storm. And he's been taught how to fly. Not by his mother, but by wildlife expert Gary Zammit.
If at first you don't succeed,
Come on! Come on, come on, come on!
feet firmly on the ground. But after weeks of flapping and running and flapping and running, Dude finally got it. The heron had learned from his hero.
It was a
Britain's Got Talent.
Tragically, just out of shot, another scientist was teaching his dog to fire a crossbow. The row over BBC Stars' salaries hit the Times with the shocking revelation that Jeremy Paxman gets £1 million a year. News that clearly stunned one rock legend. Ant and Dec are two of television's top earners, sharing £30 million over 2 years. And if you want to know how they do it, why not call them on 0898... Time now for the odd one out round. Just one between you this week. A crowd of revellers on the Underground. That's Nicholas Soames, a Taiwanese man on a motorbike, and Noel Edmonds.
This is about, let's see, the revellers on the tubes. After Saturday night, you can no longer drink on the tube in London, not on public transport. Nicholas Soames was recently fined for driving a quad bike on a public highway, and I think he might have had some kids with him who didn't have helmets, weren't wearing safety helmets. So he's committed a road offence. The Taiwanese guy on the bike...
Well, he's driving whilst eating a bag of chips.
Yeah, so he's driving while eating a bag of chips, so that's got to be a road offence, isn't it? Noel Edmonds must have been speeding, so the revellers are the odd one out because what they did wasn't illegal then, but it would be illegal now.
Is it speeding, Jeremy?
Oh, God. No.
I don't want to sound like a policeman here. You'll be getting that next week, won't you?
No.
It's not people driving too fast?
Not nothing to do with committing road offences.
I mean...
Well, 180 in your case.
They misquoted me.
No, they didn't. The reason it's the revellers is because they're the only ones who Boris has acted to clamp down on. Oh, unless we've got a big directive on Noel Edmonds coming up. Again, Boris is coming up with a lot of good stuff, so...
I think you might have to tell us.
Yeah.
OK, they've all done stupid... Well, what the Daily Mail, let's say, would call stupid things while travelling above ground, apart from revellers...
Travelling underground.
Travelling underground. Now, the Taiwanese man on a motorbike,
yes.
He was filmed riding on a motorbike while eating noodles. We can have a look at that, actually. It's rather clever. See? And actually, coming up in a moment, I think, personally, is the really good bit. It's after this mouthful. Here we go, really skillful bit now. Yeah. What you don't see, of course, is the guy on the other motorbike who's doing all the filming and the cooking. Now, Noel Edmonds, he once said that he drove at 186 miles an hour on the Tring bypass at 4:30 in the morning while naked. And yes, while it's true that giving a talk in the HIGNFY Literary Festival last week, I foolishly joked about driving through a London tunnel at 186 miles an hour. Not something I'm proud of, attending a Welsh book fair. Although the really interesting bit of the story that wasn't reported is that the Bugatti Veyron, the car I was driving at the time, it has a W16 engine, which is made of 2 narrow-angle V8s, single crank, so that powers 4 camshafts. Time now for the Missing Words round, which this week features as its guest publication, The Villologist. It's a brand new publication aimed at people who collect expired car tax discs. So, before you scoff, it seems that expired car tax discs have great investment potential. For any doubters out there, in issue 1, we can see that a tax disc from a 1961 car recently sold for £1. So we're going to start with credit crunch biting, fuel prices soaring and no footy, but this will cheer you up. What?
A 1963 tax disc. No, 74.
Supermodel.
Kate Moss. Yeah.
Naomi Campbell.
Yes.
Naomi Campbell.
Naomi faces jail. Yes, there we are. That's what it is. Yes, this is the Sun reporting the good news that Naomi Campbell could face 6 months in jail after being charged with air rage offences. Friends say it's hard to imagine Naomi in a women's prison. Ooh, no, it's not. I've been doing it all afternoon. Next, Boris's big new idea. What?
Teach Latin to teenagers.
Teach
Latin to yobs.
Yeah, teach yobs Latin.
Yes, sound classical education means you don't knife people.
Yes.
Really?
Et tu, Brute.
Yeah.
Very good.
That was quick.
Next, if you have one or more tax discs dated between 1921 and 1976...
You're very
what?
sad.
It's time for a new leatherette binder.
Leatherette Binder, small village in Shropshire.
That's it.
It is we are interested in buying from you. Some expired tax discs have rocketed in the past couple of months and can now cost you many hundreds of pounds. Mind you, thanks to Alistair Darling, so will an unexpired one. Next, Basildon to get its own what at a cost of £80,000?
Currency. Drinking water.
Janet Street Porter.
Oh, it's a trail, the Basildon Trail.
It is a heritage trail.
Oh.
That's what they're saying.
80,000 quid.
One resident, Terry Watts, described Basildon town centre to The Guardian. The nicest thing I can say about it is... it's shit. Next, what culminates in the Abbots Bromley horn dance?
17 hours of solid boozing.
Morris dancers return to spiritual home.
Oh, they've gone back to Thaxted.
Yeah.
That's where Morris dancers go.
Yes. According to the Times, Morris dancing has declined sharply during the 19th and 20th centuries. Good. And finally, collectors of expired tax discs can add to the dinner party... can add to dinner party conversations with lines like, what?
I'm on the sex offenders register. Can you pass the butter? You're not going to forget that conversation, are you?
No, the right answer is, would you like to see my expired tax disc collection?
That's how he got into trouble last time.
Mind you, they say dinner party, they mean set meal for one. No, I'll come and collect it, I need the company. So the final scores are Ian and Kate have 5 and Paul and Ian have 5.
Oh.
Well done. I smudged my makeup about But before we go, there's just time for the caption competition. Yeah. Ian and Kate have this.
The water's lovely.
This is the beach at Sellafield.
Is this the exact moment of evolution is caught on camera? A split second ago, that was 2 dinosaurs.
OK, and Paul and Ian get that.
Is she saying, is this how common people are born?
And finally, which one of these is Kate? Who is the other person?
His name's Gok1. And
Name got one. So you said that's his name.
Who is his name?
His name is Got One.
His? What do you mean, his? Who is it? Please tell me, I'm dying to know.
He is a television presenter of
You're
a
saying
program.
it as well, he. King hell, what's the BBC coming to, aren't you?
he's on Channel 4.
And I leave you with the news that after releasing the results of a survey asking how concerned are you about global warming, Greenpeace are forced to defend their sampling method. In Washington, Hillary Clinton announces she's going to pull out of the race for the White House and spend more time with her family. And following complaints about Bill Oddie's smutty language on Springwatch, the producers promised to tone the programme down. And there's evidence that London's new congestion charge of £8,000 a day may not have been intentional.
If you're quick, you'll catch more comedy with Little Britain on BBC Three now. Part 2 of tonight's opera here on BBC Two, a haunting beast of a performance from John Tomlinson as the Minotaur.
That's all right. How am I doing?
It's 4:30 in the morning.